Welcome to Paper Quest. I'm Jessie.
And I'm James.
And we're two friends teaming up in our ongoing quest through the Infinite Library.
Each episode, we get together to discuss our latest buddy read, swap stories on our recent solo reads, and talk about the upcoming books we look forward to reading next.
This is Paper Quest.
Okay, so how many books do you have for today's side quest?
So I actually was really in a reading slump, so I only have 3 books.
She was in a reading slump, and she still has more books than I do.
Well, 2 of them were audiobooks.
I do have, one of my books was extremely long. It was basically 2 books, if I'm trying to compare to you. But let's start with one of yours.
Okay, so you have heard about these in the past few. I am still going through the Harper Cape Bay Mystery series. So these are cozy mysteries that go throughout a year in a New England town. This one was called Double Shots, Donuts, and Dead Dudes. And it was still fun. Same characters that we've been hearing about. Francesca Amaro, who owns a coffee shop. And, you know, the different people in her town that we've heard of multiple times. This was actually my lowest rated one out of the 8 that I've gone through so far. I gave it a 3 out of 5. And I'm currently listening to the last one. Again, they're only like 4 hours on normal speed. So you go through them really, really quickly. And they're fun to put on if you're just like cleaning up or in the car or whatever, because they're so simple and you know that she'll come out on top eventually.
Yeah, I keep wanting to fit in cozy mysteries, and then all of my books on my Goodreads just keep sliding in there. There's just so much I want to read. It's like at the bottom of my list right now, of like just the cozy mysteries. I'm sure I'll read them when we do a lot of the fall and wintry, stuff like last year. But okay, yeah. I will do my first book. It was just shy of 800 pages, so it took a very long time to get through. This is called The Rise and Fall of D.O.D.O. D.O.D.O is an acronym, D.O.D.O. This is by Neal Stephenson and Nicole Galland. Neal Stephenson is also the author of Snow Crash, which was unintentional, but it's the same author, so I'll get a couple of his books back to back. And I don't think I've read anything by him before, so this book touched on all my favorite topics in themes and ideas. And I didn't know what this book was about, or at least at one point I did. I saw it in the bookstore a few years ago when it came out, and I knew I wanted to read it, and I sat on my list ever since. Finally decided to go with it, forgot completely what the description was, so I just went in blind. But it starts with this girl, or I should say this woman, Mel, who is writing to us, the audience. She's writing a journal, handwritten journal, and it's like her experiences in like the 1850s. But everything she's writing about so far in her life is from present day. So you automatically realize something kind of funny is going on, and you're already asking yourself like 1,000 questions. Like, did she time travel? Like, what's going on here? Why is there such an urgency to her writing? Why is she writing about the future? Stuff like that. So then the beginning of the book is out of the way, and the book actually starts, and it's Mel again, and it's present day. And she's hired by a company as an expert. She's an expert in linguistics, and she's hired by a mysterious shadow company to decipher writing on extremely old artifacts. She's told she will not get credit for it and can't ask questions, but she will make insane money. So she basically ends up discovering that apparently magic used to exist, but now it doesn't. She becomes much more involved in the process than initially they thought she would. And she learns that D.O.D.O is the Department of Diachronic Operations, or basically time travel. But this book is very lighthearted and funny, but it takes a grounded approach to the story being told. So it gets very much into realistic theories on time travel and parallel universes and stuff like that. So and how we can like manipulate possible outcomes, what time travel would look like in a realistic sense. But for being a grounded, realistic book, quote unquote, there's still a magic element, and it pits like magic and science against each other and how they can go hand in hand at the same time in the same universe or novel. For the book is divided into parts. So part 1 is Mel's point of view, but then it jumps around. So they'll hire characters throughout the books, or meet characters throughout the books who's helping them with this project they're doing to figure out how magic went away, can magic be brought back, and they get a hold of a witch who, by means you will learn a little early on in the book, can use magic under certain circumstances to help them with their project. So they jump around characters. Like there's one character who loves to garden. So no matter what's happening in the story, her journal entry always starts with like, today's weather is sunny. My plants are doing great. My tomatoes are coming in, blah, blah, blah. So it's just like completely unnecessary, but it's just funny. It's just like a little personal part about her. And then she jumps into what's going on. So this book I gave 5 stars, without a doubt. It is very funny. It is very well realized. It's very intense. It's very long, but I appreciate that it was one novel and not a series. But that is The Rise and Fall of D.O.D.O, without spoiling too much, because it's all spoilers.
So I will be really interested to hear your thoughts as you read our next book, or I don't know which order they come out in, but to hear your thoughts on Snow Crash, because I'm like 13 pages in, and there's definitely some things that are resonating already from what you're saying with those first like 13 pages. It doesn't sound like the same world, but maybe like a similar writing style.
And yeah, that makes sense. I know just the blurb on Snow Crash, so yeah. That's my extent. I'm very excited after reading this to read that. I know this book was 2 authors, but it sounds like maybe Neal Stephenson's influence is definitely in there.
Yes.
All right, well, that was my extremely long spiel. What's your next one?
My next book was also an audiobook, and it's also something I've talked about before. It is called Isn't It Bromantic? And it's the 4th and final book in the Bromance Book Club by Lyssa Kate Adams. And I've said this before, I definitely feel like, heterosexual men, or men who want to know more about women, they could definitely read a romance novel and learn something, because...
Oh, yes. Okay, this is coming back
yes.
to me.
And yeah, it was the best one yet. I'm really upset that there's only 4, and I don't know if she's making more, but there's only 4 out. It was about a Russian hockey player who got married to his best friend before coming to America, to get her like a green card or a visa or whatever. So they grew up together. They were very poor in Russia. He had great, hockey skills and was picked up by an American team. And their marriage was that of convenience and was that of, getting someone he cared about out of a bad place. And he's always loved her. And they've never like kissed, held hands. They like got married and moved to America and like led separate lives, but he's been pining for her the whole time. So he has all his friends, baseball players, country music star, like all these people in his book club, where they read romance novels, and they call the novels manuals, and they use the manuals to solve these different marital or relationship problems. And the narrator was great. I only have, I don't know many Russian people, but his accent seemed pretty genuine. But he did different voices for all the characters, and it was really, really fun, really great, easy listen to. And I really hope she makes more, because there's 5 more of the guys in the Bromance Book Club that we haven't heard from yet.
I don't know that I would read this entire series, but I want to read just one of them just to get like the feel for it, because it does make me laugh really hard every time we talk about it.
Yeah.
I'm trying to stay silent over here.
No, there's so many times where like I'm listening to it and I'm busting out laughing because it's just, oh, and Vlad, the hockey player, this is not a spoiler. He, throughout all the books, they just called him the Russian during the first 3, and he barely talked, but anything he ate, he would have like horrible gastrointestinal problems. And so they would constantly be like, don't let him use her bathroom, don't let her in there, like with the other relationships. And in this one, he like solved his problems, and he there's a whole scene where he's helping someone else out who's like having having diarrhea, and he's like, get the peppermint tea, it'll help you, but like with a Russian accent. And it's the most ridiculous thing, and yeah, laughing the whole time.
I love a good ridiculous plot. Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah. So what was your other book?
So recently, a couple weeks ago, I read The Martian by Andy Weir, so I decided let's keep going. He's got a few books out. I think, to my knowledge, they're all science fiction, grounded, realistic science fiction. So I did Artemis, I believe. I probably should have Googled this beforehand, but I believe this is an earlier work, and I think Project Hail Mary is a newer work. So this is Artemis. It's kind of a smaller scale personal story with larger scale ideas in the background. It's the late 2080s. Artemis is the first city on the moon. It works very much like a city we know today, except, there's way less gravity. It still has the rich, the poor, the famous, etc. As you can imagine, very rich people from Earth can visit and, do the whole tourist thing. We follow Jasmine, who is mostly referred to as Jazz, in a first-person novel. She is kind of a smallish time, low-level, like, smuggler. But she's, like, kind of a good one. She doesn't let the wrong things get smuggled in because you can't have things that can catch fire. You can't have guns. She follows the rules, but she's trying to make a living in her current situation. We learn a lot about... So what's funny is the book just kind of goes, and it goes, and it goes. I'm like, okay, this is cool. Like, it's just somebody's life on the moon, but I don't know the plot yet, and it goes and goes. And it's not a long book. It was done in, like, a day or two. And things don't really get started until halfway through where I'm like, oh, this is the plot of the book. Now it's doing something, which is fine. I kind of liked the whole just following somebody's life on the moon thing. It being a grounded science fiction novel, we learn how things might work on the moon. We learn how oxygen is constantly manufactured, how glass is manufactured, how tourism might work, stuff like that. But basically, Jazz is at some point presented with an opportunity to make a ton of money. I think they said like a million, whatever their currency is. I can't think of it right now. Slugs, 1 million slugs. SLG, it stands for something. It's for a large-scale operation that she's not used to doing. But during this operation, she discovers a larger plan at play that is essentially going to be like a silent takeover of the whole city. It gets very... political and stuff like that. The story itself isn't political, but that's the idea behind it. But it still stays very small and personal. I don't consider myself too stupid of a person, but I will say part of the plot, not the writing's fault, not the author's fault, part of the plot or part of the plan of like what they're trying to accomplish was definitely lost on me. I said, sure, okay, that's definitely what's going on. I think that's just whatever that was went over my head. I had lots of questions about the operation, but I rolled with it. I enjoyed the book, and I gave it 3 stars. So it's a novel that I would recommend to very specific kinds of people, but not overall. And so when I get into his next book, I'm probably going to do Project Hail Mary next, and just keep on going my Andy Weir train.
Very nice. I was going to say, I have heard of Project Hail Mary, so I would be interested to see, because I do believe that is newer, if it feels a lot different to you than the other two.
Also, what's funny, and this keeps happening because, like I said, my previous book was Neal Stephenson. We're about to read Neal Stephenson. We're also about to review daughter of the moon goddess, and of course in this book, because it's moon related, the moon goddess was brought up. I'm like, there's a lot of weird connections here. Okay, what's your last book?
So my last book was called The Cousins, and this is by Karen M. McManus. I have talked about two other books she's done, which is One of Us is Lying and the follow-on to that, and something.
Okay.
I don't remember.
I can picture the cover.
Yeah. So in this one, there's a rich family that owns an island and a resort, per usual, and it's a grandmother, and she has basically disinherited her 4 children because of something. Basically, they each received a paper being like, leave by dawn and like, don't ever come back. I don't ever want to see you again. And she hasn't talked to them, seen them anything since. And so it was really surprising and strange when the 3 children of those kids, so the woman's grandchildren, Millie, Aubrey, and Jonah, receive a request for them to come to the island for the summer and work at the resort. And so they're like, is this an olive branch? It's been 20 years. Like, they don't even know, the grandmother doesn't know these kids at all. And everything, it becomes like learning about the grandmother, learning about all the secrets of the island. And there's different people that are like, think that the children are their parents and stuff. And so they'll walk up and be like, oh my gosh, are you a ghost type of thing? Like, who the hell are you? Because, they look so much like a Story, which is their last name. And it was very...
Their last name is what? Story?
Story, yeah.
Okay.
So Millicent Story, Aubrey Story, and Jonah Story. It was good. I would say it's not as good as her 2 newer books that I read. I gave it a 3 out of 5. Again, definitely a great read. Really interesting. I kind of saw what was happening. I didn't know exactly what was happening, but I kind of got the gist of it before everything was unraveled. I am excited to keep reading her books. They're really fun, and I feel like they're interesting versions of mysteries where I guess everything seems like it's going in one direction, and she has good twists, because so far they're all around really close friendships or really close family. And I feel like there's always, one good secret hiding there. So I really enjoyed it.
You said this was book 2 or book 3?
So this is separate from the other 2.
Oh, but it's the same world.
Same author.
Oh, same author. Okay,
Yeah.
gotcha. Okay.
So yeah, she has a very, I don't know. I don't think you've watched Pretty Little Liars. I know we've talked about it, but that's the feeling I get from these books of like, there's a lot of fun and silly pieces, but also there's like moments where you're like, I don't know what's about to jump out at me. And I appreciate that.
Yeah. I mean, I used to watch the CW for some of the DC shows. I think it's a CW show, and I've seen parts here and there. It's a CW show, that's for sure.
Yeah. Well, actually, this month, July, HBO is coming out with their origin story of Pretty Little Liars. So that's what I'll be doing.
Oh, God.
It's HBO, though. It might be great.
I mean, if it's on HBO, maybe there's a difference in quality there.
I'll let you know.
No, thank you, though. No, thank you.
I'll follow up.
All right. Any last thoughts or upcoming books you want to mention?
I have a stack of books I'm going to start working on. Like I said, I've been in a real reading slump for some reason. There's like a lot of books I want to read, and I'm buying more books, but I'm not necessarily reading them.
Yeah.
And it actually started before we did our last podcast, I went to the library and I had to read those books because you only have 2 weeks. and I didn't read other books, or I stopped other books I was reading because I was trying to hurry up and read those. And like, I don't know, it just got away from me. So it put me in a slump because I wasn't like finishing books. But I'm working on it.
Yeah, I mean, and we read so hard and fast, and we truly from start to finish read every book we talk about.
Oh, yeah.
So you can imagine I mean, I think you've read more than me so far, but I think I'm close to 50 books this year, which is a lot compared to past years. Like a lot. And when I do get in slumps, I do try to find audiobooks where I can, so that I can just do my workouts or go for a walk, and then just like it's playing and I don't have to like play an active role in it. I'm just being read to, which is very helpful. But then I miss the feeling of a real book. So at night I have a book that I'm reading right now, which is again unintentionally something very similar to what I just read, but I'm sure I'll talk about that soon. And I've decided to blow through the rest of Mistborn, so I'm probably talking about Mistborn on their next episode.
I will be excited to hear that.
But I think that is pretty much everything.
Yeah.
So
please rate and subscribe wherever you're listening to this podcast.
Oh.
Follow us at Paper Quest Podcast on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. I'm really working hard. We're really working hard to beef up our Instagram and post there more regularly. So please jump over there. Leave us a comment on what books are getting you out of your reading slumps, because I definitely need recommendations.
Yeah, and definitely check out all the show notes, whether you're on YouTube or your podcasting app. All the links are there, so just check everything out.
Bye.
All right, until next time. Bye.
Bye.